And here we come to the epilogue slash what have we learned video. Showing off our beautiful, beautiful Menesthei here. So, just kind of gonna go through some stats, go through a lot of my kind of thoughts on the campaign, fun things, and yeah, I like doing epilogue videos for each of the series. Just kind of really pulls it together at the end. Get to see, how the world ended up, what was going on, talk about the trials, the tribulations, the successes, etc. So we ended up with 1,103 provinces, 13.6k pop. Um, of that, ended up 75% Hellenic, only 42%, yeah, almost all Massalians, basically. There's only a few Macedonians and a few other Greeks. So, okay, 42% Hellenic, not bad. Considering we started with 9 pops and we ended up with, of which only 6 pops were Massalians, we ended up with 5,769 Massalian pops. So that's pretty dang good. At the end here of the pops, 7,000, almost 52% at the end were slaves. Noble count, about 5%, freemen, 27, and citizens 2150. For the longest time in this game, especially at the beginning, we had our noble pops, our noble Massalians in our capital, and then we had a boatload of slaves, some freemen, and like almost no citizens. But then over time we built up our citizen class here. Oh, you could have become a metropolis too eventually. Oh well. We ended up with, I think, 3 metropolises in the game. Of course, our capital of Menesthei Lehman was our first metropolis and only for the longest time. 339 pops. That is the most pops I've ever had in a city by far. I know on the internet, I think I've seen people get up to 1,000 pops, where, if you stay a very small empire, where basically their pops have to come to one city, you can just go slave raiding and other things like that, and really get some crazy high populations. What I want to check is, yes, here we go. Here's the capital of the Magadon Empire, and they're at 168 pops. This is, I think, the second most populous city in the game here. Also, fort of level 4. Wow. Surprising. We've got 2 of their main buildings. Never did the theater, though. Very interesting. Some other choices, I think, this is Babylon. It is Babylon. 128 pop there. 120 here in Arbel. So, some quite... That's a surprisingly good amount of pop on the coast there. 78. Wow. So, you've got some areas with good pops. 111 here in Leontopolis. 80, 59, 61, 112 here. Well, it's Alexandria. 145, so quite respectable. That's good. But overall, I mean, we've got, when 150, yeah, hold on, what was that, 150? 168. And then I ended with, how many in my capital? 339, almost 340. That's a hell of a big difference, and quite nice in the end. So, obviously the main strategy, just kind of recapping things we went for, is pretty much the same main strategy that a lot of people go for when you start off with a super small country. So the strategy, looking at the text here, is you start with oratory, and then you go straight for approved families. Now, the reason why you would not do this strategy when it comes to like larger empires is because it's just not that much of a gain, really. Because the 2 main techs you're picking up is 1, census data, 5% capacity. Okay, that's nice. Free province, investment, fine. But 5 freeman pops, when you're starting only with 6 pops of your correct culture, getting an extra 5 pops that are freeman, huge deal. It also makes sure that if you capture a bunch of slaves pretty quickly, you're not suddenly, wrong culture in your capital. And then improved families, really the huge one. 5 Massalian nobles. Nobles are where all of your research is coming from, basically, at the beginning of the game. Because you don't have enough citizens, you got nothing else. And then actually, plus 4 loyalty characters is fantastic. But those 5 nobles is what shot me up to 200. Well, at the beginning it wasn't 200, maybe it was about 125 or so. research efficiency, but that's what made sure, I was never hurting for research in this game. We ended up doing 24 military techs and 23 of the other ones, plus a few extra, just lucky inventions from having a research either with the scholar trait or the obsessive trait. By comparison, we've got Rome here with 19 military techs, pretty close to me, not far. Thrace 15, Persia's only 12. Back in Empire's 19, which is good. Actually, is that the same as Rome? Yeah, it was. Pretty impressive. Egypt's got 20, so Kush is 20. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, so that's the part that's very interesting about this strategy, is just because you're small, you're tiny, but you do produce a lot of research quickly, which is good, because those techs in the beginning of this game, you start getting very quickly. And then after that, I'm pretty sure, I went into, where is it? The Grand Temple and Great Theater. So the temple is, here. Of course, temples are important right off the bat because you can start converting to your correct religion. More of your correct religion means much more happiness. You saw me at the beginning of the game also make sure I was going all 4 Hellenic deities. Why? Because we were going to massive conversion strat. After that, when we opened up with Order, we got the Grand Theater after that to once again start to begin to assimilate. It is just easier to religiously convert compared to assimilate. And if you can, if you have a pop that is converted and then you're trying to assimilate, it goes faster. If you have a pop, AKA, so it's got the correct religion but the wrong culture, it is faster to do that, to get them converted, than if they have wrong religion, wrong culture. Now, at the same time, you're probably thinking, well, why didn't you go and assimilate first and then do conversion after? Just when you look at it, the way the numbers work out, it's not worth it. So, one of the examples I can show that is, look at the government policy here. We've got a 2.7. That's based off a skill of 8. If we look at the same for cultural assimilation, it's only a 0.1 per. So it's a base 0.1 plus an 8 versus, basically a 0.3 for the conversion rate. So it's, this policy is literally 3 times as effective as the other one. And especially in our capital, I mean, we would still get slaves and get them thrown over here, even at the end of the game here, with, 9% conversion going, goodness. We still never completely converted our capital, still 80%. I mean, and that's throwing down 2 libraries. So on top of everything with the Grand Theater there. The other reason why I like the Great Temple, the Grand Theater so much, is it gives you together a 0.1 loyalty. Because loyalty and keeping your provinces loyal in the game is huge. You saw me have to basically stop everything and put down rebellions for a bit. And by getting better buildings like this, it helps stop that from happening. And especially, you just don't want to be chaining revolt into revolt after revolt, because then you're not making any progress outwards. You're just constantly putting down things. Now we'll see. What did we end up? Oh, dang it. 99.53 civilization. We barely missed the 100. That's a little sad. Almost wonder if I should have got rid of the port or something, or heck, just one more pop. Could have built any other building and would have been done. Oh well, so close. We got 99% output right there, so that's pretty stinking good. Yeah, and your capital just ends up getting so many bonuses throughout the game. Once we started slamming down civic tax and just raking on that commerce income, I mean, that's when we were just unstoppable. Because even though we had so few right culture pops, we could only ever raise 4 levies, but man, we could financially support a whole bunch of merc stacks. And that, of course, was driving our conquest for the longest time in this game. Eventually, once we started mass converting, started, throwing down the cities and getting things going, did the levy situation and the pop situation really change there. I'm just looking at it. Here's our governors. Very good map mode. Also, when things... Well, I'll probably save that for another video. But you can get other map modes out that you find interesting. You just pick it, drag it out. Ta-da. You can take a look at, like, for instance, let's say, hey, let's see territory rank. Boop. There's that. There's that. Basically, highlight your cities and then show your metropolises there in green. I mean, we have 3 metropolises over here. We probably could have built another 3 more metropolises, or 4 in short order if we had the public influence. Of course, we did not. Rome's the only metropolis in all of Italy here. Carthage used to be, I'm pretty sure. Then, of course, Rome decided they didn't want Carthage to exist anymore. We can see our settlements here in Britain. A bunch of cities in Anatolia and Greece. Then there's a few, 3 metropolises over here. What's that one? Artaxa. Interesting. That I would not have guessed. Of course, there's Alexandria. Got a few different metropolises. Actually, 6 different metropolises in India here. 7. So that's pretty impressive. 130 pop down here. Almost as much as their capital. Not quite. About 30 off. But the other reason why I think our capital just got so high is just taking a look at the stats here. Look at our pop info. The migrant attraction. I mean, throwing the holy site in here was probably a mistake. I probably shouldn't have thrown it in another city that I wanted to get up to metropolis status. But yeah. I mean, the high civilization value helps. The road network helped. Fine. Metropolis helps. With that holy site being there was a whole extra 5 points. That was pretty impressive. So, one of the things I toyed around doing, but I never did, was some of the cities, when they were no longer converting like this, I thought about moving pops, and more specifically, slaves that needed to be converted into the city. And like this one, you know, there's no conversion, no assimilation. So I did take a slave here that was, well, okay, an Iberic Tertullian. We can move him. And ta-da, there we go. 1-1, he would instantly start converting. That's probably something I should have gone and done a bit of, just because it's so cheap to move slaves. I mean, it's $5 normally, and with the bonus, I mean, it'd be, you know, minus 3.7, or it'd be 3.75 gold per slave. I never ended up quite having as much surplus money as I wanted, because, you know, founding cities was decently expensive. And then at each city, I wanted to have these, you know, the foundry, the Great Temple, and especially the Grand Theater, those 3 core buildings there to really kind of get the money up and going. So, because they are so expensive, I never quite had the extra money just to throw around with impunity. Because that's the other thing too, just the balance of when you go on major campaigns and take lots of territory. Of course, you know, as this little Roman conquest showed us, just absolutely will tank your stability. You know, we're not on the edge of revolting mass loyalty, but we're literally at the end of the game with a whole bunch of buffs. If I had done that earlier in the game, that would have been a serious problem. Also, fun fact, aggressive expansion goes over 100. Did not think it did. Was very wrong there. So, you know, if I ever, you know, when I do another game, I may look more into the left side of the Orator tree here. Why? Winning land by the spear is a very interesting technology. It allows you to basically go for a world conquest because you fight your wars like a rebellion, aka if you take a province, it is instantly yours. So you could literally conquer an entire country in one fell swoop, rather than having to make a peace deal at the end and only getting parts of it. At the same time, I think every time you take a province or something, you eat some war exhaustion. But as you saw in that war, I basically never had war exhaustion. So once you're fielding just completely professional armies, that becomes your best way to victory. Now in this game, I was, you know, not worried about world conquest, so I ended up not going that route. But I do find that very interesting. So, and I did have a good chunk of AE reduction. Not as much as, you know, if I had completely focused on it, but so minus the, okay, don't look at that minus 38%, but the other part is, you know, I'd minus 22.5% aggressive expansion impact on every province. I mean, which, you know, hey, it's basically you get 4 provinces for the price of 3, almost, not quite, but it's definitely not bad. But I could have knocked down the war score a bit. Definitely could have made it cheaper, aggressive expansive wise, to tank some provinces. And hold on, where's that good one? Symbolic Victory also. Just minus 0.04 AE over the course of the entire game. That adds up. And here, another 0.02 AE, once again, over the course of the entire game, really adds up. Also, a little bit more loyal generals would not have been bad. So, one of the interesting things is you're not able to research all the techs in this game, so you really do have to pick. I mean, I focused heavily on the commercial side of things, just because we had such a small population. Commerce was just absolutely funding everything for the longest time. As I eventually killed off people, commerce finally took a back seat to taxes. But even here, at the end of the game, with me killing off so many people, my commerce income is still, about a 2 to 3 ratio. In fact, above, better than that, against my taxes. I mean, then taxes at the beginning of this game are just almost worthless. It's just so hard to make a whole lot off taxes at the beginning. You'd have to have so many slaves, and then keep them happy, and then try to get a bunch of modifiers to make those slaves more productive. It's just... I mean, I've got an absolute boatload amount of slaves here, and taxes, we're still only making 154 every month off of, so... One of the other things I toyed with getting was clock mechanics and coming down here for that extra 5 country civilization level, and I just didn't do it. The reason being is I would have had to go through here and pick up this extra commerce 30%. It would have been decent, but it's just by that time my commercial income was falling off big time, and I was having to rely more on taxes, so I didn't think it was wise. I also took a long time to pick up any of the pop growths. I don't know if it's worth picking up a bunch of pop growth or not at the beginning. Obviously, if you do at the beginning of the game, you've got time for it to ramp up and compound over the course of it. But it's just because they're such small bonuses. Now, the only obvious thing to mention about that, though, is that is across everything. So it will probably add up over time. I'd be very curious, just taking like random provinces in the middle of nowhere, just looking at their growth rates here, and wondering, okay, it may be tiny amount per province, but look how many different territories we have. We're literally sitting on 1,100 territories at this stage. If each one of those is getting boosted, that is a serious boost. So that's another thing I thought about. Might be an interesting thing to pursue in a game. Another interesting thing I may do at some point is, of course, I focus on my nobles in the capital, which you're supposed to. I'm not saying you're supposed to, but generally what people do. But I was curious, what if I instead had focus on, just getting a bunch of crazy slave output for good money, or, doing forums for mass manpower. In this game, manpower was never an issue, so that's why I don't think freemen would have been that great of an option. And citizens, once again, citizens are a just mix of freemen and nobles in a way, but they're like a very watered down noble when it comes to the research and the trade routes, especially because my commerce was so good. I just wanted to pack the nobles in, because look at that amount of, I'm getting 13.5 trade routes just from the stinking nobles. Then, of course, an extra 10 marketplaces, once again, adds up. You throw the road networks, it adds up. I mean, much like E4, this game's about stacking modifiers. I'm just curious, how the tax income would have gone. Because if you do want to do the slave route, happiness could be an issue, but you'd also have to turn off slave promotion. And once you turn that off, that makes your slaves more unhappy. It'll keep more slaves around, so you can really start trying to tax harvest. But I just don't... I don't know how viable it is. So I definitely would like to try it sometime. Be an interesting strategy, because of course you're going to build triple mills in any cities where you're doing that to increase the desired ratio, and more importantly, their output, and keep their happiness to try to keep them from, rebelling. So basically, if you built 3 of these buildings, it'd be 18%. You turn this off, it's minus 24, so it's only a net minus 6. And there was definitely other civics I could have gone to get the slave happiness up, and especially faster. To do rights of men, to do overseers for the output. But feel like there's some more that would help their happiness I'm not seeing. Oh, that's another big thing, too. With the Greeks, integrated culture happiness, you can plus 10 from these 2 techs. I never quite made it there. And granted, my integrated culture was never an issue happiness-wise until the very end of the game here, you know, where I totally tanked my stability. But, you know, if you are going for a strategy where you are going to tank your stability hard, those 2 are quite useful to help keep you afloat there. So, oh, there we go. There's some more slave output I missed. And there's more slave output, too. I mean, there's a lot of good text for slave output long term. You know, would be interesting. Of course, I was promoting my slave pops up and out, so I was just never able to get, you know, complete massive boatloads of slaves. You know, I mean, you know, you got 68 here, but, I mean, for the longest time, I mean, basically all these freemen probably should be slaves, and a good chunk of these citizens. So, a few final other things. Take a look at our legions here. Got up to 85 pops, or levies in the capital, which is quite good. Considering we started off with literally 4, got to 85 over the course of the game, and we had to convert everything to make that happen. Looking at the other ones, and even Africa was coming online, got up to 11. Britannia became a 9. That was surprising. I never expected more than just the base 4 in Britannia. So, overall, very fun game, very interesting to see how our little empire ended up. Did I steal enough Romans from them? I did. I stole 454 Hellenic Roman pops. Got a feeling a good chunk of those are down here. Yeah, 36 of them. There's actually, oh, there's a good chunk of Romans over here. Okay. So yeah, if this game had gone a little bit longer, instead of timing out, I definitely would have been coming into, well, would have had to stabilize, just stay here on the defensive, then eventually just keep pushing in and steal Italy here. But I don't think, you know, if I decided to keep playing on, I don't think anything would have stopped me. Because I'm now in a position where, you know, I've cracked Rome, I beat them the first time, stole from them, they're only going to get weaker and weaker in each successive war. I just have to make sure that my happiness stays high enough and I don't get massive revolts. I do have these provinces slipping backwards, so I'd have to turn harsh treatment. No, harsh treatment's on all 4 of them, so it's still minus 1.5, but we're about to start bringing the happiness back because the aggressive expansion decay was catching up finally. So I definitely do think we would have taken down Rome, especially because, you know, let's face it, we basically proved it. 181 ships there. How many ships did I end up with? 116, yeah. So spamming the hex arrays, good move. I mean, we just completely eviscerated them in that fight. I will say, though, your experience really decays quickly. I mean, I had ships at, what, 50-something% in that fight. In a few years, they're still all down to, like, 4% here. So, that goes fast. Never managed to populate this one province. Much to my chagrin. Disappointing. Got that little hole right there. Little hole too. Yeah, I wasn't able to clean up Britain completely. That is another regret, but we needed to be ready to go after Rome. Once our oligarchs kept demanding we would declare war on Rome. Also, I still don't know how Rome got this, because it looked like they never fought Egypt. And if they did, I'm just very surprised. So, definitely may try a game as Rome too, especially go hard and try for a world conquest. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Rome's got the capability for it. In fact, let me rephrase. Rome's got the capability for it. Heck, probably somebody that's a complete pro player could have done it as Menesthei too. Biggest thing they, like I mentioned, they would have had switches. You have to get winning land by the spear. I mean, that's non-negotiable. Also, my strategy of, you know, never integrating on the cultures is a challenge to myself. I'm sure that'd be out the window. You probably would be picking up certain Iberic cultures, converting some, and then, you know, phasing them out over time. But I, of course, did not have to worry about that. You know, and not that my strategy didn't have its benefits also. I mean, because I had so few integrated pops, my research was just completely off the charts because of it. Now, they do cap that, but was quite good. Looking at our salient pops here, 57.69 at the end. Yeah, that high AE just costs, minus 5.18 for all my pops, so it's not even that bad at the end of the game here. I mean, heck, from being a great power alone, 16%. Any interesting pops to look at? I wonder if Romans are my biggest subset now. Other than, of course, my main Massalians. Here we go, Romans, 601. They sure are. So, a little sad I can't carry this on into CK3 with a conversion or something like that, but at the same time, let's face it, I'd pop up there and the game would basically be over. I'm too big, too powerful, too much money rolling in, especially way too developed. Some of the mods that would take, or not the mods, the actual Paradox Converter would take the game from CK2 to to EU4 would actually look, and then at your buildings in a province, and then just use that to decide the development. And of course, with all these metropolises here and a nice amount of build-up and development, that would be a huge bonus. Never did expand the road network either. So I've got good roads here in all of Iberia over here, and then linking up North Africa. I've never really connected any roads here in Britain or into Gaul. Oh well. But yeah, fun campaign. I think I've looked at all the stats. Really wanted, overall, we never lost any wars. I think a few wars I got a little bit, were a little bit hard with Carthage. That was my real challenge, to make sure, the Civil War breaking out of the Magadhan Empire. But the real challenge was Carthage, because they were my first biggest guy that could actually fight and probably beat the crap out of me. Turdetani were an issue, but not like Carthage was. Carthage, I seriously thought I had lost in one of those wars where they were attacking me, and I was just kind of just barely fighting them back. Eventually I managed to turn the tide, but it took a lot. One of the other things I like too, I find kind of neat, is your merc stack size. They increase as time goes on. Yeah, those merc stack would be $43 every month. Good size though, but using. So, happy thoughts of the little Menesthei Empire here. I'll have to decide which series I'm going to pick up next, if I'm going to start a new one or finish off some of my Hearts of Iron ones. I know I didn't want to do the Britain one immediately after the America campaign, just because I've got a feeling they're going to get pretty similar. We'll see. Then the Soviet Union I have to nut up and finish. So we'll see. Part of the Soviet Union is a little bit of analysis paralysis of, I'm right on the edge to losing it. I may have lost it, but I'm not convinced I've lost it yet. So I really want to give that a good go, where I've got some time to really kind of think, focus on it, strategize, and see if I can turn it around. See if there's any other fun map modes to look at here. Provinces. Oh yes, how could I forget? So here's the religion map. Basically made all of Iberia Hellenic finally. North Africa, heavily Hellenic. So it's impressive. This is all what the Romans were doing up here. That's not my territory. This little bit of Hellenics from me. Iberic's nearly gone. Actually, Druidic is doing better. Then you can see our Hellenic influence on the Isles there. But yeah, I mean, this world is heavily Hellenic. At least in Europe. Then looking at culture, Roman culture. Got a bunch of little Celtic cultures. Still, just because I left this territory for so long at the hands of the tribes there, still has not flipped. Good amount of Assalian though. Punic still lives on in some places. And we're even starting to flip some of the provinces here in the Isles. Interesting. Loyalty map mode. You can do your trade goods. Yeah, supply is something I never got going too well. Not that it mattered too much. But I think I will leave this campaign there. I may do one final video in the upcoming day or two talking about all the things I've learned from this game. But it was a lot of fun. Really happy with it, really pleased with it. Completed my goal of taking the tiny 9-pop country, and turning it into a complete powerhouse of the second biggest pop in the game here. So, well, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.